I don't want it to be too quiet, so thank you everyone for joining in tonight. We're just going to give everyone just a few more seconds to trickle in, and after that, we'll be beginning with Dr. Serene and Dr. Reimer introducing our panelists. So thank you for your patience, and thank you again for joining us tonight.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. I'm Dr. Reimer. I'm an interventional cardiologist at Duke, and I'm joined by my co-moderator, Dr. Serene. She'll be moderating at the end of the session, but I want to welcome everyone to the contract negotiation strategies for interventional cardiologists. This is a SCAI-WIN webinar series, and we have some very esteemed guests tonight that are going to go through some brief presentations about contract negotiations. To begin with, I am joined by Dr. Victor Cotton. He's the president at Law and Medicine. He is going to start off presenting this evening, be followed by Dr. Kimberly Skelding. She's the division chief of cardiovascular services and the chief of cardiology at Barnabas Health. And then last but not least, Susan Childs. She works at and is the CEO of Evolution Healthcare Consulting. So I will go ahead and start off first with Dr. Cotton, and he will bring his presentation to the screen. We'll get started.
All right, does that look okay? All
That
right.
looks perfect. Love it.
All right, we'll give it a
Perfect.
go here. Appreciate the opportunity. My bio is I used to be an internist. I've been a lawyer for almost 30 years now. And you say, well, what's my tie to medicine or certainly to women in cardiology? Good question. My wife is a cardiologist. She's a head of cardiology at one of Penn State's hospitals. We have a daughter who's an intern. We have another daughter who's a medical student. So although I'm a man, I and about half of my clients in my legal practice are female physicians. So although I'm a man, I have a very big vested interest in the success of women in medicine and women in cardiology in particular. And I'd like to share some of my perspective on some of the things I think you could do better to put yourself in a better position when it comes time to talk about your contract. And because you're interventional cardiologists here, I'm going to be direct about this, but I want it to also be constructive. I got 6 points I want to discuss. The first one is if you're talking about renegotiating your contract, improving your position, if you're in a job and there's things about that job you'd like to improve, you must take the initiative. Women are particularly vulnerable here because I have found that women are more willing to quietly sacrifice in hopes that it will be eventually recognized and you will be rewarded for all of your sacrifice. I have found women are particularly vulnerable to that. Do not fall into that mindset. Because what happens is you sit and you give up your a week of vacation because somebody had to have emergency surgery. You take extra call. You give up your research days. You pick up extra committees. You pick up some part of the fellowship education responsibilities, and you're quietly sacrificing, giving up, giving up, giving up, in hopes you'll eventually be showered with reward. That is theoretically possible, but I have never seen it happen. And then what happens is when you reach the end of it and you're ready to quit because you can't do it anymore, then you call me and say, I need your help. I feel like I've been taken advantage of. Well, in some ways you have. But part of it is you need to take the initiative. If things are not going the direction you want, you need to step in and say something and do something. The other thing that's important here is when someone asks you to take on a little extra responsibility, they say, hey, we're a little short staffed. Can you take on a little bit of this? Okay, you can say yes, but you also need to say, yes, I can take that on. How long do you want me to do this? Is it a week, a month, Like, how long is this going to last? Because if you step in and just do it without any time limit, you're never going to get yourself back out of that. And then you're just quietly sacrificing, hoping somebody recognizes. You must take the initiative. Two, when it's time to negotiate or renegotiate, you have to rank your priorities. You have to know exactly what you want. A common thing that happens is someone will call me, it's either a new contract or they want to renegotiate their old contract. And I say, okay, what are you looking for here? And they'll give me 8 or 10 things. Okay, you're not going to get 8 or 10 things. Whether it's no matter how badly they want you, that's too many. You have to prioritize them. And it also helps you get the things that are most important to you. And it makes it easier for the other person. If you come to me and you need 10 things, I'm like, oh man, where do I start? But if you come to me and say, I'm really happy with most things here, I just got a couple things I'd like to talk about. Much easier for me. You can only do that though if you know what's most important to you. So the other things they should be on your list in the back of your mind because you may not get the things you really want and you want to come away with something. But always rank your priorities before you negotiate, discuss anything. Know what you want and know exactly what you want. Let's suppose your goal is research time. You've had some success with research and publications, you got a little grant, you'd like more research time. And your goal, so okay, that's a good goal. And you want to talk to the chairman about this. How much research time do you want? You say, well, I'd like 2 days of research. Okay, you're ready to talk to the chairman. You know what you want, you know what your priority is, and you know exactly what it is. Okay, seems easy. Common mistake people make is you get to the chairman, you have the meeting, you make your pitch, you're looking for more research time. The chairman says to you, okay, I hear what you're saying. How much research time are you looking for? Okay, what's the answer? 2 days a week. If you give me 2 days a week, I'll be thrilled to death. I'll sign up for another couple of years. That's the correct answer. I find that people hesitate. Women are particularly vulnerable here because you don't want to seem demanding or difficult. So, what you say when the chairman says, how many days are you looking for? You know what a lot of us say? We say something like this. You'd say, uh, I don't know. I was thinking maybe a day or two. Okay, what kind of answer is that? Okay, the answer is 2 days. What did you say? You started by saying, I don't know. Yes, you do know. Okay, don't say that. I was thinking, yes, you were thinking, and now you know the answer. So don't say the first two things. And then what did you say? Maybe a day or two. Okay, why did you say one day? You wanted 2 days. Okay, you have to practice this. You have to practice it. You have to be ready because in the heat of battle, you're gonna dilute it out. People do it all the time. I think we want to seem reasonable, flexible, nice, non-demanding. If you want 2 days, you have to say 2 days. Don't say maybe a day or two. I was thinking, what do you think? That you're selling yourself short. I see people do it all the time. If you want a $50,000 raise, practice in front of a mirror saying $50,000. And when the time comes, you say $50,000. You could be nice about it, but don't water yourself down, dilute it, and slur it. You wind up with nothing. The chairman says, yeah, we could probably give you a day. And then you come out there saying, yeah, I don't know. I think it's because I'm a woman. They sold me short. No, you asked for a day or two. They gave you one day. Okay. Don't say one if you want two. Very, very important. Three, negotiate from agreement and toward agreement. People make negotiation unnecessarily difficult because they just do a frontal assault on every issue. You know, if you want more money, let's suppose you want $50,000 more in your salary. People, the usual approach people take, whether it's by email or in person, is just say, hey, I was looking at my contract and can you raise my salary $50,000? You know, that's a hard way of doing it. Okay, first of all, I don't know where you're coming from. I don't know what that's going to get me. If I give you $50,000, are you going to be happy? Or are you going to say, well, thanks, I got some other things here too, buddy. We need to talk. Like people tend to not want to negotiate into a vacuum. They also don't want to get hit out of the blue with a big issue. Make it easy for the other person. You want to talk about salary? Here's how you talk about it. Let's suppose it's a new contract for a new job. You would say something like, hey, I'm really interested. I want you to know I really like this job. I could see myself here and I'd like to build my career here. I was looking at the contract. I'm very satisfied with most of the terms. I do have a couple of questions about the salary, and if we can work them out, I'm ready to go. You see how much easier that is. I told you I like the job. I said I want to be here. I said I'm really happy with almost everything. I just got a couple questions about the compensation. For some reason, my battery's running low. Excuse me. I just have a couple questions about the compensation, and I have a couple questions about the compensation, and we're good to go. I've made it very easy for you. And now you're going to say, well, what are your questions? And I just said, then I would say, well, the salary is a little low. Can we raise the salary? Draw the other person towards you, compliment them. Say, I'm really happy. I've been very happy here the past couple of years, but I'd like some more research time. I'd really like to make a longer commitment, but I need some help with the call schedule. So make it easy for the other person. Let them know you're really close. There's just a couple questions. Let's just iron this out. I find people make negotiating hard because they just wait for a quiet moment and then they say, can you increase my salary $50,000? It's hard. Don't do it that way. It's hard for both people. And quite frankly, I think it's not very effective because you haven't given me any background on this. Let me know where you are, make it easy, and then tell me what you want. Don't worry about the gender pay disparity. It's defeating. It is self-defeating. I think it's real, and I think a lot of it is women negotiate differently. But even if it's based on misogynistic underlying principles, don't worry about it. Why? Because it defeats you. I have women call me, cardiologists, been in their career 10 years, they want to renegotiate their contract. These are successful women holding pretty prestigious positions. And I bet you 25% of them say to me something like, yeah, I'm hoping you can help me out because, I'm at a disadvantage because I'm a woman and they're probably going to, not treat me. But I don't know. What do you think? I have a chance? What are you doing to yourself? Why are you showing up saying, yeah, I'm probably going to lose, but I don't know, maybe you can help me? Where did that you've never had that attitude your whole life? Did you, when you applied to med school, did you say, yeah, I know I'm a woman, so they're probably not? Did you? No, you didn't. When you applied to interventional structural cardiology fellowship, did you say, yeah, I'm a woman? So no, you didn't say that. You wouldn't get where you are by saying that. Don't go in with that mindset because you're setting yourself up for defeat. Because as soon as you meet resistance, you're already primed thinking it's because I'm a woman. And then you go in knowing you're going to lose. And as soon as you meet resistance, you're like, that's it. I lost because I'm a woman. Don't do that to yourself. I don't know if they're going to pay you less because you're a woman or more because you're a woman or the same because you're a woman. It's irrelevant. Your goal is to make the most of it, to go in and prioritize what you want and make a good sales pitch and argue your case. And you might wind up with a lot, you might wind up with nothing, but don't go in with this defeatist attitude that you know you're going to lose no matter what you do. You're setting yourself up for failure. Don't try, I find women are vulnerable to this. Don't try to figure out what they're thinking or what their motives are. Look, here's what I tell folks. I say, let's take what we have on paper. So we got something on paper. Let's see what it says. Let's work from that. I find women often want to know why they did this. Well, why do you think that? Why did they propose this? Why is this a salary? What do you think they're thinking? Okay, let me give you some. Most people out there these days are not thinking. Thinking is not as popular as it used to be. So a lot of these people aren't doing a lot of thinking. And in terms of what their motives are, I don't have any idea. I don't know if they're generous and just not very bright. I don't know if they're greedy. I don't know if they're trying to trick you or lie to you. What I encourage people to do is to take what you have on a piece of paper, what they have proposed, what your existing contract says, and let's talk about how to try to improve it to get another piece of paper that you can then sign. Don't spend too much time on the psychoanalysis because ultimately this is what we need is a piece of paper that you can sign. Now, I will say, if you find out that they're evil, dishonest, scheming manipulators, then you probably shouldn't work there. But beyond that, don't spend too much time trying to figure out why they did what they might have done. It just doesn't lead anywhere productive. You have priorities, you know what they are, you know exactly what you want. Stay focused on that. Don't get distracted by this stuff because it doesn't improve your position. My last point is don't expect everything. I find many physicians are reluctant to accept partial victory. You went in, you wanted three things. You got one of them, you sort of got part of another one, and the third one, you got nothing. So you got like 1.5 out of three. That's an improvement from where you were. So it is a gain. But I find, and maybe it took you 3 months to get there. I find that physicians are often reluctant to accept that. It's like, well, I failed. No, it's a partial victory. Take your winnings off the table, sign a new contract or a new amendment, get the things, the 1.5 things you negotiated, get them, and then reload and try again in 6 months or a year and a half with a new list of priorities. Don't expect everything. And please don't let partial victory be turned into total failure. Know when to take your winnings, get it in writing, and move on, renegotiate next time. Thanks for listening to me. You want to go with the next speaker?
Thank you, Dr. Victor. That was excellent. I think the take-home points are we should take our initiative, avoid compromise, speak up, and prioritize. Very well done. Thank you. I'm going to welcome Dr. Kim Skelding for the next lecture. Dr. Skelding, I'm a personal fan. She is a very talented interventional cardiologist. She's also a phenomenal program developer, division chief for CV services, and chief of cardiology, Barbados Health. Dr. Kim Skelding. Dr. Skelding, you're not able to see your slides.
I think we may have lost her.
Do you want to proceed
Why
with
don't we pivot?
Susan
there
Childs?
she is. Hi, Dr. Skelding.
I had some, my internet just went out, so hopefully I can open up my screen and we'll get going. So my one disclosure is that now I'm on the other end of having the negotiations. We're actually in the process of hiring people. I hope they don't watch this. I'm just kidding. But I think that it's important. I'm going to try to go over some important points that have been helpful to me. I have had 4 jobs in 25 years and have made some errors in negotiation. And I hope that by seeing my slides, you'll maybe not make those errors as you move forward. So before the interviews even begin, you really need to have things ironed out in your mind. You really need to know what kind of job you're looking for. Are you looking for something academic? Are you looking for private practice? Are you looking for a hybrid model? Are you looking for some protected time or not? What exactly are you planning on doing for the next several years? Know your skill set. Make sure that you are at least somewhat adequately prepared for the job. That being said, there is data on the list of requirements that women will likely not apply for that job until they've had all 10, whereas men will apply for that job when they might have 5 or 6. So it's okay to have a little bit of a stretch. It's okay to apply for jobs that you don't check all the boxes. Just have an answer and a plan in mind how you're going to get the skills that you may not already have. You need to know your strengths and know your weaknesses. If you're not good at having direct conversations, then you shouldn't take a leadership position, at least at this time. And know what you're strong at. If you're really good clinically and you're efficient, then taking a job that might be RVU based might not be as bad as taking a salary job. Know what makes you happy and know what you cannot tolerate. So just as important as knowing the one or two things that you must have that are non-negotiable for you, you need to know the one or two things that you will not tolerate and are also non-negotiable for you. Important points as a foundation. When you're looking at a job and thinking about what this job is, it's really important to know the cost of living. If you are taking a job in downtown Chicago and your salary is going to be $150,000 a year, know that you're likely going to be living on ramen noodles. Make a plan for what you want to be doing and how you want to be living. Have a basic understanding of what other jobs are like where you're going. So talk to other people, find out if they have protected time or they don't have protected time. Have a basic idea of where their salaries are, if you know people that you can trust, or if it's a university setting, you can usually find this online because it's publicly reported. You need to always consider walking away and know what that means. And so if you go into a position, I think the biggest mistake you can make is trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. So if you know that you are an upfront, very transparent person and want to work in that situation, then be thoughtful about where you are in the country, and where you are in what type of institution. And that leads to my next point, which is understanding the culture. I have worked East Coast, I've worked in the Midwest, I've worked on the West Coast, and I've worked in the Deep South. Geography matters. Know what the city or town or the place you're going to, what it's like. If you're going to be the only woman in the 100-mile radius, know what that's like. Also know how your personality fits with sort of the demographics of people there. Also, you need to understand your hospital's risk tolerance. I cannot underestimate this enough, especially in interventional cardiology. Try to ask people about their mortality and morbidity conferences. Do people look forward to it? Do people hide from it? Are people scared to go to it? What is it like? Is it supportive and a growth experience, or is it just a way to berate the young faculty? It happens. Know about the lifestyle. My job before this job was in a very hiking, biking, running, skiing, ultimate sports type of region. Although I like to hike and I like to go for walks, I'm not in that ultimate community. And so when all of my friends and partners were doing this, I didn't really have people who had similar things to what I enjoyed doing on my time off, and they weren't really available in my region. Really try to identify work-life balance. A job can have a huge amount of vacation. There are some jobs out there you will see interventionally that have 4-day work weeks. Some of them have 10, 11 weeks off a year, but find out what the rest of the time is like. Because if those jobs are being publicized, then there's generally something wrong with it, whether it's that people don't want to live in the region or the people there that you would work with are toxic. But if it looks too good to be true, it may be. And you need to investigate the place as much as you can, realizing that many people who leave institutions will not air their dirty laundry. And sometimes if people leave under duress, they might have a non-disclosure agreement and can't speak about the bad things there. So if people are hedgy, thank them for their time and move on to somebody who's willing to be a little more transparent with you. Salary. Salary is usually the first thing we consider, but for longevity, it's one of the least happy. People will generally stay in a job that they're happy more so than a job that they're overpaid. Consider what you need and what you want and see if there's a standardized scale. There's some institutions, large institutions, some of them in the Midwest, that have standardized scales, and it's considered sort of bad form to negotiate salary because there is no negotiation. It just is what it is. Consider your worth. If you have a skill set that they don't have and that they need, you are definitely worth some extra dollars. And think about, if you're looking at a high salary, what price do you pay for that salary? Are you going to be working 14-hour days every day? Then it might not be worth it. Maybe you don't have a family and it might be worth it to do it for a few years to pay your loans off or get a nest egg together, but nothing comes without some cost. You should try to identify your MGMA scale for your specialty and your region and know what sort of the 50th percentile is in payment, so that you kind of have an idea of where your negotiations should be. And really ask for what you deserve and advocate yourself. The other side is doing the same. One big mistake is that people will often say, so how much are you looking for? What are you looking to make? You absolutely, positively, 100% can't say this enough. Do not want to put the first number out there. Let them put the first number out there and you negotiate from there. What makes the job more palatable? Time, time off, time working, time in the lab, time doing general cardiology stuff that you may not enjoy as much. Your support. Do you have a secretary? Even if you share one, it's better than having no one, especially if you want to plan meetings and do things like that. If you're going to be someone in academics, see if there's help writing grants. Look for mentorship, whether that's clinically or academically. Look for someone who you will be able to bounce ideas off of. Talk to the other people in your group and say, you know, if you have a tough case, who do you go to? CME money, CME time. You need to really stay pertinent. And so you will find that there are places where there are private practice folks who have not been to a CME in person in eons. That may not be where you want to be. Yes, some people learn well online, but there's nothing that really can substitute for being in a place with other colleagues, asking questions and interacting. RVU targets, find out whether they're reasonable or not.
I think Dr. Skelding may have frozen. Give her maybe a moment to come back on. I think she is completely gone. So let's go ahead and pivot. Susan, I'm sorry to ask you to do this sort of right in the middle, but I think we may need to pivot here. So again, Susan Childs, founder of Evolution Healthcare Consulting. Thank you for being here tonight. She's going to talk about negotiating and body language.
Oh, sorry.
Hold on. So sorry. Dr. Skelding is back on. So maybe we'll go back to that slide.
Yes, sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. We're in a Zoom era. Everything like this happens.
Yes, gosh. Let me go back to this. Anyway, know about the people, know if there's an airport nearby, whether you have family nearby, and if you plan on having children is important. Your allocation of time and the stability of the practice, how much turnover there is. What you may not hear about, a mutual understanding of success. What does that mean? You should ask people, what does it mean? What would it mean to you for me to be successful? Is it bringing new practice, new devices, new things? Is it just bringing volume? And if you're interested in leadership, what are the roads to leadership? How many of the people in your group have risen to the top from starting out where you would be starting? Look at the salary structure over the years to make sure there's appropriate times when this will increase, contract changes. Do you do those personally or are they institutionally driven? And the possibility for coaching, that's really important, especially early in your career. You might want to have somebody to go to outside to vent and to get advice for important meetings and emails, things like that. Don't be too eager, but don't be too laid back. But take your time and have thoughtful follow-ups and hold your places very helpful. What you don't want to be doing is like literally finishing your interviews, get back night after dinner and start sending out thank yous. Give it some time, and don't seem too eager, but also don't wait a week. And when you say no to a job, be honest, be thoughtful, and being clear is kind. Don't be hedgy, don't ghost people. That really doesn't bode well for you. Let me see, I'm trying to get to the next slide. Okay, be factual. I want X because of Y and I deserve it because of Z. And find out if you're talking to the person who makes the decisions or an intermediary. Sometimes you're negotiating with someone who you think can make a difference, but they're really not the person. So you tell them all this stuff, and then they translate what you've said to someone else, and things get lost in translation. This goes back to what Mr. Cotton said, or Dr. Cotton. What are you willing to let go of? Maybe you have 10 things that you want. You negotiate, you get 8, you might not get 2, that's fine. What are the non-negotiables? What things will you not do without? And what would be your stretch goal? So you should put down what you want, what would be a pie in the sky that you want, and what would be something you would settle for. And you should do that for all of the things and make like a little Excel spreadsheet of all the things that you want to do in your negotiation. Be willing to market yourself. Women are not terribly good at speaking up and tooting their own horn, and you need to do that. And understand what parts of the negotiation are better in email, by phone, and in person. Some things you want in writing. Some things you want to talk about in person because you want to see their body language, which Susan Childs is going to talk to after. And so these are really important things. Be confident, but not arrogant. You really don't want to just fit in, but you want to excel. One of the most important things that I have learned through this last job I took, I interviewed at 20 places. I got 17 offers, which means I turned 16 places down. But you need to be unapologetically yourself. If you're going to have longevity, you need to say, this is me, this is what I do, this is how I am. Essentially, are you ready for it? Is this what you want? And I am in a job now where I have never been happier, but it is the first time that I didn't go into a negotiation thinking, what do they want? And can I be that person? Rather than thinking, is this place for me? Which is really what you should be doing. They will see who you are soon enough, but it's better to be upfront about it. There, a few of them are free, some of them are costly. There's a lot of free things on podcast, TEDcast, things like this. So there are free options out there. Contract lawyers are vital. They're not a nicety. You absolutely positively need one. They can be the bad guy in your negotiations, so your relationship with the entity does not get tarnished in a negotiation. They'll think of things you don't think of. They'll likely have you set your sights a little bit higher. My last lawyer, although they were in Florida and my job was on the New York, New Jersey border, really was absolutely phenomenal. And she also gave me valuable insight into the entity I was considering, because she works with people all around the country. And so she was able to tell me what other people were doing in that situation. So make a good choice. In summary, plan ahead for what you want, sit down and write it out. Sounds sort of Mickey Mouse, but you really need to think about what you want, what you're willing to give up on, prioritize your things, and also what you will not do without. Know yourself and understand that nearly everything is negotiable. And what you can't get in salary, maybe you can make up in quality life. Use online tools, use a coach, get a great lawyer, use all the things that you can, and do not compromise your values. Most important. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Skelding. That was great. And I particularly liked how you highlighted that with this go round and sort of job negotiations, it was more about whether the place was a good fit for you and not trying to make yourself a good fit necessarily for the place. I think that was a great highlight, and something we all should think about as women potentially going into new job opportunities. We'll now turn it over to Susan Childs. Thank you so much for your patience. I know you've come on a couple of times, so we're going to turn it over to your presentation on negotiating in body language. Thank you.
The third time is the charm. And yes, women often underestimate themselves in negotiations, and I love that. Know your value, go in and declare that. You have a right to do that. I mean, when you're new, you might be checking things out, but when you have that experience, you're here, you're good, and there's nothing wrong with saying that. So my presentation actually has to do with what goes beyond the black and white of the contract. And even though Dr. Cotton said not to try to figure out what the other person is thinking, you definitely should not try to think what they're thinking, but you can actually tell what they're thinking by their body language. And that's what we're going to look at. And remembering too that administrators and administrative staff, and especially lead CEOs, et cetera, when I'm working with a hospital or something like that, or a group, we are the liaisons between the physicians and all your outside vendors and all the practices you're working with and the physicians. So we are kind of between the two of you, and we balance it, and we take great pride in doing that. So I'm actually a consultant that has written a lot about emotional intelligence, body language, and medical stuff in general, and that's why I'm here. There are no disclosures. And the first thing I would talk about is the setting, because if you're having an internal negotiation, excuse me, that can sometimes be a little testy because you're supposed to be very cohesive to begin with. So if you're having an internal negotiation, then what you need to remember is you're all looking for the same goal. You can take it kind of with a grain of salt, but also be respectful to each other, and knowing that you are indeed sharing the same goals as a whole. If it's external, it depends upon what you're negotiating. It can be a contract, it can be the sale of a practice, it can be a physician coming in, it can be a lot of different things. But again, remember that whatever we are looking at, it is between us, the physicians, the staff, and the patients. It affects everything that we do. Looking at physical obstacles, be aware of any barriers. If you're sitting at a table and there's this massive thing in the middle and you can't see somebody, get rid of that. Look at walls. Look at noises. You want to be in a nice, quiet place. And look at the seating. You want the room to be the appropriate size. You don't need a massive room for 3 or 4 people. You can have a small private thing that also feels better. So think about that as you're moving along. Arranging the seating accordingly. That includes if you're walking in and you're a guest somewhere, to ask if you should be sitting somewhere, because they may have a place that they typically sit. And we are animals, we are territorial, and we have to remember that. The distance also makes a difference these days. After COVID, the distance between people, especially when standing, has changed. It used to be about 18 inches. Now it's about 24 to 36, depending upon the person, the nationality, male, female. Females like to be a little bit closer than males. And they also like to stand different ways. We'll talk about that in a moment, but also just the general appearance. Think about how you appear. Your physical appearance can make a very big difference. There was one time that I was interviewing for a new practice, and the physician that was applying had this stain on their lapel. I can still remember what she looked like only because of the stain on her lapel. It's all I could concentrate on. I just kept noticing it. So remember, your appearance does make that first impression, and first impressions are made in 12 seconds. Make no doubt about that. We have to have an executive presence for a serious situation, because if we don't take ourselves seriously, no one else will. So as we make that first contact, that positive enthusiasm reflects that energy and expression, an expression that really builds trust. It's all about the energy. If you come across authentically and you want to be positive, they will relax a little bit because you make them feel better about being there. Begin that meeting, every meeting, with that energy, and meet someone's eyes, and a firm handshake. Doesn't have to be too soft, doesn't have to be too hard, but definitely make sure that you have that eye contact as you're doing it. Stance and gestures make a huge difference. We all know things about when you have your arms crossed and you're being stubborn, something like that. You also might be cold. You don't know. But think about this, and it is different with males and females. So sitting with legs together or in front of each other, slightly crossed, that's kind of open and waiting to hear what you're going to say next. If somebody is sitting and they have one leg crossed and their knee is pointing towards you, that's kind of protective and confrontational. If you're standing and your weight is evenly distributed with the body's kind of tilted towards whoever you're speaking with, that's very good. It also shows that you're waiting and you're open and you're receptive. If you look receptive and open, they will also do that too. If they're not willing to listen or they're bored, they're going to be looking out the window, they're going to be looking out the door, look where their feet are, wherever their feet are, that's where they want to be. So think about that. They also may lean back in their chair a little bit, but there aren't, just kind of seem bored. So look at that. Stance and gender can make a difference between identifying with male or female. Males tend to talk to each other at right angles. Women tend to talk to each other across from each other because they see it as more intimate and the eye contact is more direct, and it can form a closer relationship. But if you're a male and a female, just be aware of where the other may want to stand and what expresses you best and how you can best communicate, because it does make a very big difference with how people feel, how close you are to them, and how you're standing. So you can actually have body language work both ways. You can present with certain body language to try to get them to mirror it. We'll talk about that in a moment too. But you can also watch their body language. Body language expresses someone's true feelings. They may be saying something, but they're shaking their head no, right? We've seen it a million times. So if you see them leaning forward, smiling, nodding in agreement, they're really into what you're saying and they're agreeing, and you've got them so far, right? We said before, they're looking out the window, they're bored. If they're not willing, they're going to lean back, cross their arms. And if they're relaxed, they're going to look relaxed, just like we were just saying. If they're shifting often, crossing legs, or they're unwilling to listen, you can kind of tell that, right? But if they abruptly lean forward and listen, you've got their attention. You've made a really good point. You can also watch as they realign their body to match yours. That means they're also in agreement. That's also body mirroring. So if you see them doing something that you would like to imitate that you think would be positive, you can do that. Or if they're really into a conversation with you, they call that dynamically coupled. So you'll be doing this, you'll be talking to them, or you're thinking about it, or you're standing or sitting a certain way and they're mirroring you, then you are totally engaged and you have them. And keep going with that because you are just as engaged and you can do that. If they're taking copious notes, that's a very good sign. And even if you're not that interested, if you want them to think that you're interested, pretend you're taking notes, act like you're watching them, just so kind of you're keeping involved and they think that you're involved as well, and go along with what they're saying, and then you go back with whatever retort you would like to, but show your engagement as well. And think about the kind of relationship that you want. Think about the end goal, because an agreement is just that. As other people have said, you're not going to get everything. You're going to get some things. That's why they call it an agreement, because it benefits everybody. And you want the body language to reflect that as well. You don't want to seem closed. You want to be very open, but you don't want to dilute your goal, as Dr. Victor said. So the best thing you can do with staff members, and think about this, it really makes a difference. Anything you're doing, you could be negotiating a practice, like I say, and a lot of your current staff members are training new staff members coming in. So make it as easy for them as possible, be as transparent as possible, and give them the best training possible so that as new people come in, they can train as easily as possible and it's streamlined along the way. If we're all supporting each other along the way, that's what makes the difference. Transparency and trust are the key with everything, with every step of the way. If you take away the fear from people as you're transitioning, as you're negotiating something important, then people will stand behind you and they will trust you and they will stay with you. And that's what we want. We want everyone to work as a team as we go through any negotiation. So work with your actions and others as you do that, and you will see everybody kind of go along with you, hopefully, and that will help with your negotiations. And that is mine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Childs. That was a phenomenal presentation. I think the one point that kind of stuck was that if you don't take yourself seriously, nobody else will. It's really important to know your worth before going into the practice, know what you're bringing to the table, do your due diligence of finding out what the fair market price for that job is. And I think the key to be able to speak up is having knowledge and having backup, like webinars like this, and having a network to talk to. Dr. Skelding made a great point about RVU-based job versus leadership position. And if you're doing an RVU-based job, know the RVU value for that area, which is really important. Know how many RVUs you get for reading echoes. Know how many RVUs you get for doing CATs. See if you can meet those targets. Leadership, know your resources. Know if you have the backup. I do have, one of the questions which is really interesting, especially when you are talking about multiple positions, is how do you turn down an offer without burning the bridge? And maybe we can start with Dr. Skelding on this one.
Yeah. So it can be hard, right? So in the very end of my one of my job searches, I was between two positions, and I was pretty, it's pretty clear. I kind of asked both places for a lot of the same things, and it came down to, for me taking the job, it came down to what success meant to them and having a clear set of guidelines and also being closer to my family. And so I was just very honest. I was like, I really enjoyed meeting everyone. I liked the group. These were the positive things. I am taking another job because of X. And they actually said to me, well, if things don't work out in your final negotiations, please call us, back and let us know if things change. But I think the best policy is truth. Because and maybe there's some things you can't, tell them if something bad happens at your in. Burn bridges is when the communication isn't clear. And honestly, if you can't communicate with people at that stage, how are you going to communicate with them moving forward and in your other jobs? And so you have to learn how to sort of, put in your big girl pants, if you will, and have an honest conversation. But too many times it's just, and it's the same from jobs, like they'll call you back in 6 weeks or 8 weeks.
I think
I
Dr.
think you
Skelding-
lost Dr.
Yeah, I think
Skelding.
we have lost her. We do have a question in the comments section. So you're told salary is not negotiable and you sign for what is offered. Then you find out that someone else in the same position, both new attendings in the same job, is being paid more than you. How do you approach that once you wait until your contract is up for negotiation? So maybe Dr. Cotton or anybody really, maybe start off with that question.
Yeah, when people say things are non-negotiable, I tend to just ignore that. So to me, it's uh, it's a negotiating. It might be true, but it might not be true. And I think you probably make your list of what you like, what your desires are. You rank your priorities, and you go for it. And if they say, well, everybody makes 400,000, that's not negotiable. Well, if that's too low and you want more, I would just ask, say, can you pay me 450,000? And maybe they can, maybe they can't. But I think the only way to know whether something is negotiable is to try to negotiate it. And I find it to be, sometimes like it's non-negotiable. Everybody signs the same contract, take it or leave it. That might be true. It might not be true. It doesn't change my approach. I think you rank your priorities and you try to maximize the opportunity.
And I would add that there's never anything wrong with asking. I love your attitude that it's non-negotiable, that is not acceptable. I love that because everything is negotiable and you never take the first offer. And it's so much more than that. But remember, men have no problem going up and saying, I'm worth more. Women have to realize that we are worth just as much and knowing your value and feeling good about that. And sometimes if you just write it down in black and white, that will actually help you feel more confident in what you're doing and being able to approach something like that.
And I think prevention is the best therapy for that. There's nothing wrong with saying, am I being paid as well? Am I in the range of where everyone else is? I remember at my first job, because one of the nurses told me that one of the male partners was going to make more than me. So when I went into my negotiation, I was like, is he going to make more than me? Is he going to have more time? Like, I asked very specific questions. I didn't say, hey, him, but I said, are any of my partners going to, at the same level as me, be making more money? And I had come in with extra training. So I was like, do I just not want to be paid what your people coming in are paid, but I think I should be paid more for my training. But I think you need to do that up front. I think it's always harder to come back and renegotiate. It's always better to do it up front. And I said something earlier that I wanted to clarify. When I said, who makes the first offer? Because the employers will say, well, what are you looking for? And sometimes they press you on this. I think a good answer is saying, I want to be paid fairly for my education and my degree of experience, and I want to be paid commensurate with the rest of the group, putting those things into context. And I think that that's a reasonable thing to say.
I just wanted to add one
to-
more point to that. Sorry, Dr. Cotton, I'll let you go first.
I guess because I'm a lawyer, I tend to be more blunt. That if somebody said to me, how much money are you looking for? I'd have an answer ready. And I wouldn't sell myself short. Once again, I wouldn't say, oh, I was thinking maybe 450 or 500. No. If somebody says, Cotton, how much money are you looking for? I'd say, if you could pay me 500,000, we're off to a really good start here. I give them a number. Now you want to give them because if you know the data, if you've done some background, it's not like you're in there completely blind. I do agree a general negotiating principle is always let the other person give a number first. But I think in this situation, if somebody asks me for a number and you've done your homework and you know what's out there, then give them a number at the high end of the range and start there.
I think that's a great point. And a lot of times, if you have counter offers, those can also be used as a negotiating point. And the one point that I wanted to make sure we also mention is negotiation a lot of times is not just about your job, especially as women, when we're negotiating, could be about the family. It could be about placement of a spouse. It could be about placement of a child. So a lot of times the negotiation can go beyond your own salary and your own position, and including family as well. But to that question, one thing I would also mention is sometimes there are red flags in a job. And if they have not been truthful and transparent with you, to me, I think that would be a red flag. And I would start questioning, is this somewhere I want to be long term? Do I have to have that relationship with them long term? And start looking at other options.
Yeah, I agree, but I agree that honesty is a backbone of the relationship. What I have found is there's also, especially in these bigger systems, there's a fair amount of miscommunication, laziness, and incompetence. And you have to be sure that it's not one of those because, they promised you something, the contract says something different. I think it's easy to conclude they're lying to me, they're terrible people, and I'll never work for them. I used to conclude that, but then I realized I was saying it about almost everybody. In fact, I have found that in these big systems, there's just a lot of miscommunication. And I'd want to be sure that I tend to give people the benefit of the doubt. But of course, if they lie repeatedly, then that's a serious problem.
And I would also say that as you are looking at different practices and finding out the right one for you, talk with the business manager, talk with the administrator, ask them how often their contracts have been renewed with payers, ask them the turnover rate of your staff and physicians, ask them things to know if people are if it's worth staying at that practice and if it is indeed progressive and it can stay alive, because a lot of practices can, and they're happy to tell you that. The other thing is to go back to the place where you were interviewing by yourself with your family and go around a second time. Don't just go in there showing you around, but go around the entire area, because as other people have said, it's about your family, it's about your lifestyle. And that negotiating has a lot to do with keeping where you want to live and in a good place.
And that's part of the reason women often wind up with less money. When I work with a male client and I say, what are your priorities? 99% of the time, they say money. Women, much of the time, it's like, well, I want limited amount of call. I want defined hours. They often have their priorities are often more oriented to their family. And then both parties negotiate. The man focuses on money, winds up with money. The woman focuses on a manageable schedule and winds up with that. But if you do a study, you'd be like, men are paid more than women. Um, there might be some underlying historical misogyny there, but a lot of it is just what we choose to prioritize. And I've seen my wife do that in her career. When we had 4 kids, they're bigger now, but she prioritized her schedule and she made less money than her partners, but she got what she wanted. So it's not, if both parties get what they want, to me, that's not inherently unfair to either one. I
Yeah.
do think
No, but
women
I
are less
think we
willing to
can't.
put women are. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think we can put people in boxes. I mean, my husband's a stay-at-home dad and I'm the breadwinner, and I want money. So give me more money. And I'll work more call. That's fine with me. But so I don't think we can generalize that anymore. Maybe at some points we could, but I think that even if a woman wants to work part-time, she should be paid an incredibly fair part-time salary, and she should be able to put boundaries on it. The problem is that most women who are hired to work part-time are then asked to work 75%, which is not fair. And so I think that women that take part-time jobs, which I think is a good option either at the beginning of your career or the end, and for men as well, if they're the only child and they're taking care of their parents, things like that. I think they need to really keep track of their time and effort. And if they find that they're working more than 50%, they need to go back and claw back some of that salary and some of those support things. But I think that I will that I was, I had 2 young kids. They were in school. I was from a community that I lived in. I was going to stay there forever, and women don't change jobs. And I was like, sorry, you're absolutely positively wrong. And I took a different job and I moved my salary and changed things.
Well, thank you guys for all of these great comments. I a note that we're at the top of the hour, so we need to be cognizant, I think, of timing. So I do want to make sure that everybody fills out the link that Alan has put in the chat box for CME credit. thank you to our guests for being here tonight. Thanks for all the great points. We've really enjoyed it, and I think it's been very useful for the attendees.
Go women.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you
Good
all.
luck, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.